When I celebrated my 82th birthday, I felt I was still managing well on my own. Sure, things took longer than they used to, but I had my routines, my space, and most importantly, my freedom. Then came the fall. Nothing serious, but enough to worry my children. "It's time, Mom," they said. "You need more support than we can provide. A retirement community would be perfect for you." Their intentions were good. They researched facilities, took me on tours of places with friendly staff and clean hallways. I saw residents playing cards and doing chair yoga. It seemed like a reasonable next step, a place where I wouldn't be a burden, where I'd have care when I needed it. 2 years later, I've gained perspective on this life-changing decision that I wish someone had shared with me before I packed up my home of 40 years. While institutional living works well for some, there are hidden costs that brochures don't mention and that family members, with their focus on safety, often overlook. If you're considering this path for yourself or someone you love, here are 6 realities I've experienced that deserve your careful consideration. 1. The quiet erosion of independence. The most profound change wasn't visible on day one. It came gradually, as routines shifted from self-directed to institution-directed. Before, my mornings began with brewing coffee exactly how I liked it, strong with just a splash of cream, sipped slowly while watching birds at my feeder. I decide when to shower, what to eat, when to nap. Small choices, perhaps, but they were mine. Now, my schedule follows the institution's operational needs. Medications at 8 a.m. sharp. Breakfast served from 7:30 to 9 o'clock, not a minute later. Showers on Tuesdays and Fridays, with an aid's assistance whether I feel I need it or not. "It's for your safety," they reassure me when I express frustration. But safety has become the justification for removing choice from nearly every aspect of my day. The most telling moment came last spring when I wanted to sit outside in the garden during a beautiful afternoon. "You'll need to wait until 3 p.m. when we have staff available for outdoor time," I was told. The garden, visible from my window but inaccessible without permission, became a perfect metaphor for my new reality. This gradual surrender of autonomy affects more than just daily schedules. It reshapes how you see yourself. When others make decisions for you long enough, you begin to doubt your capacity to decide at all. 2. The growing distance between visits. "We'll visit all the time," my daughter promised as she helped arrange family photos in my new room. "It's actually closer to us than your old house was." The first month, this held true. My son came for Sunday lunches. My grandchildren appeared with handmade cards. Even old friends made the effort to find me. By month 6, patterns had shifted. Visits became phone calls. Sunday lunches became monthly check-ins. My birthday celebration was postponed twice before being combined with a holiday gathering. It wasn't malicious abandonment. Life simply continued for my family while mine had fundamentally changed. Their days remained filled with work deadlines, school activities, and social commitments. Mine became increasingly defined by the absence of these connections. The most difficult part, realizing that as my world contracted, theirs expanded in ways I was no longer part of. Grandchildren graduated, took trips, started relationships, milestones I learned about after the fact rather than experiencing alongside them. When you live among family, connection happens naturally through daily interactions. Once removed from that environment, maintaining meaningful contact requires deliberate effort from both sides, effort that often diminishes as time passes. 3. The search for meaning within limitations. Before moving, I volunteered at the community library, tended my garden, and hosted monthly gatherings for friends. These activities weren't just pastimes, they were expressions of who I was, connections to my community, and sources of personal satisfaction. The activities calendar here offers bingo, movie nights, and occasional craft sessions. While well-intentioned, these programs are designed for group participation rather than personal fulfillment. They fill time but rarely feed the soul. I've watched as residents who once ran businesses, taught children, or created art gradually shrink into passive participants in someone else's schedule. Thomas, who had been a master carpenter, now sits with idle hands because there's no workshop where he might create. Eleanor, who taught literature for decades, finds the book club selections simplified for mass appeal. The most insidious aspect of institutional living is how it subtly communicates that your productive years are behind you. Your role has shifted from contributor to recipient, from active to passive. When your environment reinforces this message daily, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain a sense of purpose. 4. The acceleration of physical decline. Use it or lose it isn't just a saying, it's a physiological reality I've witnessed firsthand. At home, maintaining my independence required regular movement. I climbed stairs, prepared meals, walked to nearby shops, and tended my garden. These weren't exercises, they were necessary parts of daily living that kept my body functioning. Here, with elevators, prepared meals, and assistance always available, the incentive to move diminishes. What begins as welcome relief, no more struggling with heavy groceries or worrying about slipping on icy walkways, gradually becomes a pathway to increased frailty. I've seen residents arrive walking independently and transition to walkers within months, not because of any specific injury or illness, but because their bodies adapted to decreased demands. I've experienced it myself, the stiffness that comes from sitting longer, the decreased stamina from walking less. The institutional setting, designed for efficiency and safety, inadvertently creates environments that accelerate physical decline rather than promote maintaining capabilities. Regular physical therapy sessions can't replace the natural movement that comes from managing your own household. 5. The diminishment of privacy and dignity. There's a profound difference between choosing to share your life and having no choice but to share it. In my own home, visitors came at my invitation. Personal care happened privately. Conversations remained confidential. Institutional living fundamentally alters these boundaries. Staff enter rooms with cursory knocks. Medical conditions become topics of discussion among shift changes. Bathing and toileting often require assistance, transforming deeply personal activities into procedural tasks. Even in private rooms, walls are thin. Televisions from neighboring rooms, staff conversations in hallways, and overhead announcements create a constant backdrop of institutional sounds. Moments of true silence become rare treasures. Perhaps most challenging is the subtle shift in how you're perceived. At home, I was known by my history, the roles I'd held, the life I'd built. Here, I'm defined primarily by my needs and limitations. Conversations often happen around me rather than with me, especially regarding my care. How are we doing with our medications today? A nurse might ask, using that institutional "we" that feels simultaneously infantilizing and distancing. These small linguistic choices reflect larger attitudes about agency and personhood that permeate institutional settings. 6. The one-way door. What no one adequately explained was how the decision to enter institutional living often becomes irreversible, not because of formal restrictions, but because of cascading practical realities. Within months of my move, my house was sold. My furniture was divided among family or donated. My household routines were forgotten as my body adapted to institutional scheduling. My neighborhood connections faded as I was no longer present for community gatherings. Even if I wanted to return to independent living, the foundation for that life no longer exists. My financial resources, now directed toward monthly fees, wouldn't easily transition back to maintaining a home. My physical capabilities, diminished through months of reduced activity, would make independent living more challenging than when I left it. What I thought was a trial period, a chance to see if this lifestyle suited me, turned out to be a one-way journey. The longer I stay, the more permanent it becomes, as the infrastructure of my independent life dismantles itself in my absence. Conclusion: finding a better way forward. I don't share these reflections to suggest that institutional living is never appropriate. For those with significant medical needs or cognitive challenges, the structured environment and professional care can be necessary and beneficial. What I advocate for instead is more thoughtful consideration of alternatives and incremental approaches before making this life-altering transition. Had I understood the full implications, I might have explored in-home care options that would have preserved my independence while addressing safety concerns, considered shared housing with other seniors to combine resources and reduce isolation, investigated naturally occurring retirement communities where I could age in place among neighbors, tried short-term respite stays to truly experience institutional living before committing, established clearer agreements with family about maintaining meaningful connection. Our society's approach to aging often presents false binaries: complete independence or total institutionalization. The reality is that most of us need a middle path, support that honors autonomy, maintains dignity, and recognizes that safety is just one of many human needs. If you're facing this decision, take time to consider what truly matters to you in daily life. The small freedoms, the familiar surroundings, the ability to set your own rhythm, these aren't luxuries to be discarded in pursuit of safety. They're essential elements of a life worth living, regardless of age. And if you love someone approaching this transition, remember that your concern for their safety must be balanced with respect for their autonomy. The quality of life includes far more than physical security. It encompasses meaning, connection, dignity, and the fundamental human need to direct one's own journey, even as that journey grows more challenging.